Well, if 2024 wasn't an interesting year for wrestling, I don't know what is so far. I mean, we're not, excuse me, we're not even basically, you know, 2 months in. We're about a month and a half, not even that, a month and 2 weeks into this year. And a lot of things have happened. Some notable office names in wrestling have been, released from their positions. You got the guy in New Japan that's been released. Then you got the guy that, excuse me, helped found Stardom, being released, fired, if you will. And then you had, of course, the whole Vince McMahon stuff. And now you have Scott D'Amore, or Scott D'Amore. And Scott D'Amore, if you will, has been, with, TNA Impact Wrestling since almost the beginning. Now, was he there for the entire run? No. He was there basically, I would assume, from about almost the early to, I would say, late 2000s, 2010s, if you will. And then he was released or fired or something like that. But then he was brought back. He was brought back, when the company when Anthem Sports, brought in, Jeff Jarrett, brought back in Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett brought him in along with him, and Bruce Pritchard and others. And, of course, the Jarrett part didn't last long, but D'Amore was someone that stayed around. And what did D'Amore do? Well, basically, he worked his way up to vice president. Yeah, he worked his way up to vice president, from what I understand, and then to president, and he'd been in that position ever since. And TNA Impact, was very special to him, because you always need an alternative wrestling promotion out there, that's different in some capacity to WWE, and TNA Impact proved that. I mean, they were different even during the times that they brought in Hogan and Bischoff to help run things, and that didn't turn out too smoothly. And and in between that, of course, or in between and during all that, you had Dixie Carter too, and excuse me, you had her kind of running things behind the scenes and sometimes on screen, And of course, her little run didn't last. Her long run, I should say, for a while, didn't last forever. And then again, here we are with, D'Amore in that position of power, on and off screen. And then, unfortunately, that didn't last long. And now we got this Antony Cicione, now in charge of TNA as its president. And apparently he has a bit of wrestling experience, but the only experience he has is he helped bring the WWE to the Score Network in Canada. Now, apparently he is, from reputation-wise, he's obviously a very nice guy, and he is willing to listen. Like, if he's new to something, and he needs expertise, on how to, work something, in a field he is practically new in, or only has a teeny bit of experience, then he's going to lean on those that have much more experience to help him out. So if that's true, good for him. But here's what's interesting, though. D'Amore knew, apparently, that this was going to happen. Both sides basically knew this was going to happen, but what's interesting is after it happened, Anthem Sports on TNA's own website, and I think their own website, said that, D'Amore had been terminated. He had been fired, but they did compliment him. So there wasn't a bad thing to say about him. There was nothing scandalous as to why he was let go. But what's interesting, though, is when they had a Zoom meeting, and it was a Zoom meeting led by Gail Kim and Tommy Dreamer, to the talent, along with Antony Cicione, the new president, they said the exact opposite of what they said online. that instead of saying, oh, we fired him and terminated him because of such reasons, instead they said, oh, no, he mutually decided to step down. And Scott D'Amore, if you will, D'Amore, didn't do that. He wasn't in the right. He wasn't, someone that ever considered that. He wanted to stay with the company outright. So already, you have, your own new president, who's basically part of Anthem, lying to the talent. And the talent, obviously, from what reports are coming out as, he kind of tells something is not right. Like some on a wait and see basis, because at least as long as, most of the creative team and booking team and all that was, there with D'Amore is still around, then pretty much things should be okay. And if Antony Cicione is going to be somebody that, as he said, as reports put out, is going to be someone that will lean on those with the expertise, experience, if you will, in the business to help him out, especially with the company, then, some are going to wait and see if maybe this might turn into a good thing. Excuse me. Others obviously are not very happy. Moose, the world champion for TNA, who won the title at Hard to Kill, excuse me for a second, who won the title, at Hard to Kill, has stayed off social media. Yeah, and obviously for good reason, because he sounds like the kind of guy that might be silent, but could also be very vocal in his words via typing, if you will, via Twitter, keyboard, if you will. So obviously he's like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep my cool for the time being. And there's a lot of, and he's not the only one that's alone in his disappointment in this. A lot of other people that like Scott D'Amore are not happy about this. Trinity, Naomi, who's back in WWE, she's not happy with this. Because he treated her right. But what was the reason for this potential firing that even D'Amore knew was coming? What happened? Well, reports have come out that he kind of was going back and forth with Anthem on how to run the company. Basically being very different, in opinions and, creatively and business-wise from what they saw, how they saw the company that they owned should be run, and how he saw it being run, mostly as a wrestler or as a wrestling promotion. He even tried to buy the company. He went, and he went and he got a letter and all that, from a well-known big-time, bank, probably in Canada, and went to them and said, hey, I have this, here's my offer. I would like to buy, TNA from you, and let it to be its own thing. And they considered it, but then they said no. And they said it was a very generous offer, but they said no. So you gotta wonder if, the difference of opinions and him trying to outright buy TNA, with the offer that he gave them, is what led to his termination. We don't know. But whoever gets him next, they're going to have a great mind on their side. But let me know what your thoughts are on this whole